Orgonite. What in the heck is Orgonite, and why is this one of the most important tools for personal protection in your life? So please stay with me, and I'm going to answer a lot of questions. I've discovered that Orgonite is one of the most powerful personal protection tools. And when I travel, I take my entire Orgonite collection with me. What is Orgonite used for? I use it to, quite frankly, deal with the modern world. It's the ultimate tool. I use it for EMF protection. I use it to correct my food, and I use it to structure my water. Orgonite is a favorite, not only of users, but of trolls and debunkers. Social media trolls love to debunk and deride and ridicule people like me that use Orgonite. So if you're a troll, stick around, it's going to be a fun time. However, when they do so, they are only displaying their lack of comprehension of how the universe is structured and basic laws of nature. So everything in our 3D universe is spinning. Planets and moons spin on their axes and encircle their respective stars. Galaxies themselves are whirling pinwheels of radiant light. As on the macrocosmic level, so on the microcosmic. As above, so below. Everything in this universe is vibrating in rhythmic harmony. These are among the immutable laws of nature. So let's start with how to use Orgonite to correct our food. So what do I mean by correct your food? First of all, we have to understand spin, as I mentioned, and spin direction. So everything that we're going to take into our body is either going to be giving us energy, prana or chi, or it's going to be prana stealing. And this can be measured using a simple tool which is old, called a pendulum. So any natural food grown under the sun and stars and rained on by the rain will automatically have a centripetal or clockwise spin. The centripetal spin is gathering or accumulating a life force and is thus termed negentropic, whereas the centrifugal spin is releasing or dispersing energy and is moving towards entropy or chaos. The reason why you want the centripetal spin is because the centripetal direction is gathering and accumulating energy into itself. The centrifugal or counterclockwise spin is dispersing. It is releasing energy, losing energy. So people can also have these kinds of spins. Maybe you know somebody. So the spin that we can measure with our pendulum is actually happening at the subatomic level. So you might say, well, great, it's easy to find foods that grow under the sun, moon, and stars. And yeah, that is totally true. We would have really healthy food in today's world if it wasn't for something called industrialized agriculture. In industrialized agriculture, there's a movement that has been underway for some time, which appears to be trying to disrupt the natural rhythms of agriculture as were practiced from ancient times, and polluting our food supply through the use of pesticides and herbicides. So you might say, well, I only eat organic, and so my foods aren't sprayed with pesticides. And that's awesome. And I think a lot of you that might be watching this video are definitely on that page. But the problem is that especially if you live in the United States, the entire water supply has been contaminated with glyphosate, courtesy of Monsanto. So even your organically grown fruits and vegetables, if that farmer is using a regional water supply, it's likely that it's contaminated with glyphosate. Even though a food might look visually perfect, such as this onion, I'm going to demonstrate that it has a counter-rotational spin. So this onion is a non-organic onion. It was purchased at Ralph's in Burbank, California. So if you're not familiar with a pendulum, this is a measurement device, and it's going to track the direction of the spin of the subatomic particles. So all I'm going to do, and I'm not spinning it, I'm going to hold it over this onion. And as you can see, it is rotating counterclockwise, counter-rotational spin. So this is indicating to me that this is probably, if not sprayed with pesticides, then it's been watered with water that's contaminated with glyphosate. And so that contaminant is within the water structure of this onion, which would otherwise be perfect. So here's where we have to get our head around orgonite and subatomic structure. So chemicals are made of molecules. Chemicals, including pesticides, are made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. Atoms are made of subatomic particles. Subatomic particles are merely vibratory wave patterns of sound and light, which respond to energy fields. And this is where the magic of orgonite comes in, because orgonite, whether it's in this, like this sleeping pod, or this pyramid, or this charge plate that I'm going to show you, orgonite, it has the ability to change the molecular structure or the molecular flow of the food, of the air, or of the water due to the field effects that it generates. So this is where the debunkers are going to have some fun, because we have to understand that the space around us, or what some call the field is not empty. Okay, the air is not empty. It's the air, the space around us only represent a portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that is not detectable by our senses. So I'm just letting you know that while I'm going to be talking to you, I'm going to place this onion by this orgonite, okay? And then we're going to test it again. So this is the same onion. I've only got one onion. I would have used a melon, but I ate my last melon this morning. For the sake of this video, I'm going to show you. I've got my onion that's in this little plastic, and it's next to my orgonite. In fact, I'll even put it right on there like that. Actually, I'm going to put it right up here so you can see that I'm not doing any hocus pocus, and I'm not changing onions on you. So we're having an understanding that the space around us is not empty, and there are components of the space that are not visible to our 5 human senses. The type of pollution that orgonite will address is pollution that is actually not visible. We need to understand that pollution, or non-life enhancing wave fluctuations, such as incoherent electromagnetic fields from our devices, can and do exist in the airwaves even though they're not visible to our eyes. And this is where orgonite comes to the rescue. Orgonite is a passive energy generator. It works on piezoelectricity. So piezoelectricity just means that within this pyramid, within and all throughout, there are finely ground crystals and metals, certain types of metals, copper for instance, that have been ground to a fine powder, and then they are set into a mold, and then a type of epoxy or a matrix has been poured in. And then when the epoxy resin, it's a resin, okay? And when the resin dries, it compresses the crystals. And when you create compression on the crystals, it generates a type of electricity known as piezoelectricity, which is the same way that your watch works, if you ever have worn a quartz crystal watch. So orgonite is normally full of crystals, and here's another one that's manufactured in a way that you can see the crystals much more easily. However, this one is actually a more powerful pyramid, even though you cannot see the crystals. It's because they are finely powdered, and so you can get more of the crystalline material into the pyramid when they're not left into big chunks like this, even though it is very pretty like this. So the energy that the Orgonite pyramid or any Orgonite generates is it's a form of free energy, piezoelectric energy. And as such, it is capable of creating field modulations within its local environment. And this is exactly how it works to correct your food or how to protect you from electromagnetic smog. Another use of Orgonite in food is it can help you grow your vegetables. If you do have a vegetable garden or even a flower garden or herb garden, there are Orgonite products, which I will link below, that you can place in your garden, and it will enhance the growth of your vegetables. So what we're seeing here is an experiment performed by an Orgonite gardener. On the right, there's some butternut squash that was grown with the Orgonite garden pucks, and on the left was the control, which is the very same seeds, but it was not using any Orgonite garden pucks. The reason for these results is it's not magic. It's not, but it is. It's due to the field effect changes of the local piezoelectric field of the pyramid. So this is a negentropic centripetal field that is formed around the pyramid. And this is why it can help to protect you from electromagnetic fields, correct your food, and correct your drinking water. I had originally gone into a whole segment on how to wash or remove the pesticides from your food, but this video is getting way too long, so I'm going to post that in a separate video that will just be focusing on food. So once you've washed your produce, then you can place it by your Orgonite for 20 to 40 minutes. Now, in a pinch, even 5 minutes will correct it. But if you want to, if you have the time, it's better a little bit longer, because you really, just think about it, you're reorganizing the molecular structure of your food, and you're changing, again, what's a pesticide? It's a chemical. You're changing, you're rearranging, you're going underneath, guys. This is why this is so cool. You're going a step subtler than the game that they're doing on us with the toxins, okay? So a pesticide is chemical. Chemical has a certain molecular structure. But when you use the Orgonite, you're rearranging the molecular structure, so you're breaking the rules, and you're making the molecular structure into something that is harmonic, that something it is into negentropic and life-giving, centripetal spin. Look up Dan Winter. He is the king of centripetal spins and vortices, and I'll link him below too. No, I'm not affiliated with Dan Winter. I just love him. Okay, so before we get into the water, we're going to test our onion that has been sitting on this Orgonite sleeping pod for as long as you've been watching this video. You know how long it's been sitting there. Okay, guys, this is clockwise. Okay, you see that? I'm not spinning it, okay? I'm not spinning it. This is a clockwise spin. It's going to 12 and it's going around. So it works, okay? So if you're not familiar with dowsing, you can also use muscle testing, which is in fact a form of dowsing. What I'm doing is I'm simply holding the pendulum over the onion, and it's the field of the onion itself which is moving the pendulum. Dowsing always works. It just depends on, you have to have a clear intention for the information that you're looking for without a bias, but merely seeking to get clear information as to what you're testing, what is going on in what you're testing. And as I mentioned, any type of crystal necklace or even a stone tied on a string, which was probably the first pendulum, will work for this test. Okay, so now we're going to go on to structuring water. So Orgonite will structure amorphous water, such as tap, filtered, or even distilled water. Reverse osmosis filters clean the water very well. However, the resulting water is very chaotic and amorphous in its structure. Amorphous simply means that it doesn't have a coherent shape or geometry. So because of that, reverse osmosis water should always be structured. Since the water within us humans is naturally structured, as well as the water in our fruits and vegetables, it's always more hydrating to take in structured water, because it's like, you think of the interlocking pieces of the puzzle. The water is more easily absorbed into the cell when it's structured or coherent. Dr. Masaru Emoto conducted many experiments demonstrating the difference between amorphous and structured water. He demonstrated how water holds memory and how water is one of the foundational intelligences on this planet. He also demonstrated different methods to structure water. So to structure water with Orgonite is very simple. You simply have to fill a glass or jar with pure water and place it on the charge plate, like so. To fully structure your water, make sure your water sits on the plate for 45 minutes. This would work just as well to structure the water, except the balance, I would probably, if I was going to use the sleeping pod, I would probably use a smaller jar, and it works fine. It's also fine to simply lean your Orgonite against the side of the water jar. It doesn't necessarily need to be underneath the jar. However, when it is, you're able to see the vortex, which is made visible when you do the ice test, as shown in this photo. Anyone with a disc of Orgonite can run the ice test experiment for themselves, which enables you to see the vortex spiral that is created through the piezoelectric field that is passively generated by the Orgonite. It is also well known that all gizmos on the market that make structured water do so by creating a spiral or a vortex or a swirl. So here illustrates how it's done passively with Orgonite. If you have, some people get a set of 2 charge plates. They'll put one under their food and one under their water, or one can double as a sleeping pod, which can go underneath your pillow. So in case you're one of the many that suffer from insomnia, these will help create that coherent field around you where you sleep. So if you're interested in getting a piece of Orgonite or 2 for yourself, then you can find all those product links in the description box below this video. So now we're going to go to Orgonite as EMF protection, which is a favorite of the debunkers. So basically the debunkers and the trolls that love to ridicule people like me and perhaps you that's interested in this type of material are still operating in the paradigm of scientific materialism, which was actually, we grew out of that when we shifted paradigms with quantum physics. They didn't get the memo that we're on a different paradigm of physics now than the materialistic Newtonian paradigm. In today's world, our air is filled with incoherent frequencies, which are vibratory waveforms in the air. Just like, you know, when you watch TV, that's the antenna is picking up an invisible waveform in the air. Well, these cell phones, you know, and these cell towers, and particularly the smart meters, the computer, anything electronic, the router. I mean, some are stronger than others. I mean, if you live by a tower, that's something that you really want to look at in terms of EMF protection. And I have plenty of other videos on this channel about EMF protection and how to EMF protect your house. But the point is that our air today is polluted with an invisible pollution known as EMF smog, or incoherent frequencies. and they're emitted from cell towers, smart meters, smartphone. In fact, anything that they're calling smart, that actually means run in the other direction. Because see, these types of technologies are generating fields that are the entropic or the centrifugal, the types of energy fields that are sucking the life force out of you. So if you're on your computer all day and you feel like the life force has just been sucked out of you, you're not imagining that. So how I use Orgonite, I obviously have the pyramids. I keep one by my router. I keep one on my desk by my computer. I have it on the back of my phone. This is an Orgonite cell phone shield, and I have two phones, so I have two shields. I use the sleeping pod. I use the charge plate. I wear a pendant, and I also, my latest thing is these little shungite bracelets. Now, shungite is a stone that has properties similar to Orgonite, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down in this video, but it has been used to purify water, and it also purifies air. And I even have a little pyramid. This one is pure shungite. But I've noticed that when I wear my shungite bracelets, when I'm working on my computer, that my wrists don't hurt. And there was a time when I was getting this wrist pain, this freak wrist pain, and one day I got on my computer and I realized that that's what it was coming from.
The Orgonite phone shields can also be used on your laptop, router, iPad, or any device.
So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for staying with me, if you are still with me, and I hope you found this useful. The products that I mentioned will be linked in the description box below. And if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing or liking the video. And I thank you so much. And I wish you well. I wish you the best of health and sanity and prosperity, and finding your beautiful and coherent way through this world today. Namaste.